Now let's get talking. The Lagos State government signed a 2022 budget of 1.758 trillion naira, tagged budget of consolidation, into law. The budget has a capital expenditure of 1.166 trillion naira, representing 66% of the budget estimates, while recurring expenditure is 591 billion naira, representing 34%, to maintain the 66-34% budget tradition of the state. The budget is set to consolidate infrastructural development across the state in line with the theme's agenda to address issues on education, infrastructure, health, technology, social intervention, rail projects, and other critical areas. You would recall that the budget was increased from about 1.4 trillion to capture financing options for the Blue and Red Line rail projects and other ongoing projects in the budget of consolidation. Well, let's discuss and of course break down these figures and its impact on the economic development of the Center of Excellence. I have joining me live in the studio the Honorable Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget in Lagos State, Mr. Sam Egube. It's good to see you. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Tolu. Nice to be here with you.
Yes, in the new year. Well, let's first review this entire document. It's a big one. It's really big. We're talking about 1.7 trillion here. And take us through further details of this document. And there was this increase from 1.4 trillion to 1.7 trillion. What are we trying to capture in all of this?
Okay, I think in evaluating the budget, it's important to know that it's an increased size. All of that represent expenditure for the people of Lagos, and it's important to have that in mind, that the increased budget is for the people of Lagos. We also need to understand that the budget is not a budget for the executive. It's a budget for all Lagos, and so the budget process begins with a consultative forum with the people of Lagos in all their divisions. And like I said the last time we discussed, even the House of Assembly goes into a stakeholder meeting with all their constituents. You know, it moves from that point into bilateral sessions with the MDAs who have a view as to their strategic imperative for the year. And then it goes to the Treasury Board meeting, the executive, and then it finally ends in the House of Assembly. At every stage of this process, the budget can change depending on the perspective, because one of the commitments we did give was that when Lagos speaks, we will listen. Mr. Babajide Olusola, Mr. Governor, will listen. So the budget could change at any point in time. But I think that one of the issues is because of the size of the change. In the last lap, people are concerned, and I will explain these changes. You know, it's basically in the way we are approaching this year, right? Even in the House of Assembly, you also have bilateral meetings with the MDA, so it's something that that we should look at. Now, there are several projects which we have strategically funded using guarantees, and when you use guarantees, it has no cash implication on your budget, in the sense that, I mean, you are not really paying anything. So it's a strategy matter as to how you manage that sheet. We at first we'll bring this asset build up in as the repayment begins to clock into the budget, right? The House of Assembly did feel that no, let's clock it now, right? Let's clock it now, meaning that our deficit position will go up by those guarantees. Remember, not cash. Yeah. Right, these are projects that are already ongoing, right, backed up by guarantees, and the rail project is the biggest of them all. The Egube project is another big one that is basically funded in that way. Now, people ask, did you not know that? No, in terms of strategy, the time we wanted to clock it in, we're going to be clocking it in 2023 when the repayments begin to hit our cash flows, right? But we didn't feel it had any, as for the people of Lagos, which is the focus, it did not matter where it was clocked in. And so we agreed with the House of Assembly that we'll clock it that way. Okay. But once you clock the rail that way, then you have to clock also every other transaction that follows that particular form, like the Egube expressway project. Right? And those are big size type transactions. But beyond that, we had closed our bond, right, quite late, like about December.
Yes.
And in closing it that late, it meant that you could not spend it all, because, I mean, you had the cash, but the projects were not ready for the complete expenditure of the bond. And the wise thing to do is to bring both the projects that you thought you will have spent this year into the new budget, as well as the unspent portion of the bond. So that also tends to increase the size of the budget. And lastly, we have said we wanted to finish and pursue existing projects very aggressively. We just felt also that there were certain other projects, right, which the House felt, based on the consultation with their constituency, that we should not look away from that. And what that meant was that it was going to also add a little bit. But the idea is that it was a project that it was a budget that Mr. Governor signed in favor of the people of Lagos. We should be working hard to make that happen. I think the question that people should be asking, because the full protocol of our procurement agencies and the rules with which we implement projects normally will be deployed. And what people should be saying is they should be excited about the size of the budget and what the government intend to spend. And if there are concerns, it will be, how are you going to raise the revenues, right? And not talks around an increased budget. All those projects will be happening in Lagos, and we are quite excited about it. So on the headline, you see that the revenue expectation is 1.2 trillion. Yep. The budget size, like you have said, is 1.7. The recurrent is 591 billion. And the capital spend is 1.16 trillion. Now, what that does is that it lifts us a ratio of core capital to recurrent of 66:34, which is significant. Yes. Now, and that's exactly how we're going to go. It is represented by deficit position, apart from the revenue side, of about 521 billion. Now, a lot of the funds around that deficit position, like I said, are guarantees. They are not cash requirements because these projects are committed projects. The funds are already there committed, and therefore it will happen, right? And that is what I think is great about this project.
6634 is very interesting to me, and I see that there will be a lot of work. Already there's a lot of work going on. So what should Lagosians expect? There's some specifics as it relates to the things agenda.
So primarily, in terms of strategy, what we are trying to do this time is to accelerate to complete every project that we have started, right? We are talking of to advance materially. I mean, some of them will not be able to completely finish because of the size of the funding required, but we are going to push it to some logical completion that the people of Lagos will be proud of. Projects like the Badagry Express Road, we want to be able to push a portion of it up to Kokomaiko. We want to complete the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway to Ekpe T Junction, and that is quite ahead of budget. We want to introduce, and also advance materially the Ojota-Okpebi link bridge, which is new. Right, we believe that we can gift ourselves, as in Lagosians, that new project. Right, we are also thinking about, and this project has also started. We just want to be able to finish it this year. We are thinking of deploying about 8 stadia, community stadia around Lagos, right? Because we believe that engaging our youths using sports and entertainment is going to be significant. I mean, in changing the perspective which our youths really do have. Don't forget Mercy Children's Hospital, which has started. We want to be able to take it quite far into completion. It's a 130-bed hospital located in Lagos Island. When we finish it, it's arguably one of the largest, right, most sophisticated children's hospital you will have in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, those are some projects. We're also working on schools. We'll continue to do some schools. The schools project, for example, is one that we funded also in this manner, right? The idea of funding it in this manner is because we know 2022 will be very busy. So we try to take a lot of these strategic projects that we're beginning at that time outside the bureaucracy and ensure that they are well managed by the banking system together with our technical crew, so that those projects will go ahead, the contractors will get paid, and it's the reason why you see, for example, in the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, the contractor is moving very far ahead of schedule. That is how this is really organized. We've also focused on the human capital aspect, and in the human capital aspect, we're putting in about 30%, moving to 325 billion.
Wow.
That will be investing in human capital. That includes the education family, what we'll be doing in our humanitarian spaces, women affairs and poverty alleviation, the employment trust fund, and SDG. That you will see, for example, in education, we are moving quite quickly with the infrastructure development. We are working with the teachers to ensure that they are well trained and they are familiar with the teaching practice of the curriculum which we are working in. And then the students to also ensure, using technology, that they are more engaged, they are more active, and they are more emboldened to participate. And we are getting results already. I mean, the pass rate last year was 37. It was very bad, right? But because these things were just being unlocked, the solutions. This year, I mean, this last one that just came out, 2021, we had moved from 37 pass rate to about 80%. And we intend to move it to 90s as we go for our students that pass. And the students are happy, the teachers are happy. We've gotten more teachers into the classrooms to work, right? You will see, that's why for education, for example, you see that we moved up to 173 billion, which was 25%, right, of the budget. Right. We're also thinking about food security. Food security is that one of the things we learned in COVID times is that even though everything you want you find in Lagos, because it's a high consumption center, when there's a shock in the value chain, we easily can run dry. So we are working very heavily with our people to improve their farming skills, to ensure we go into processing, to stay strong in the areas of our competitive advantage, like in fish production and aquaculture, and then drive agripreneurship by encouraging our youth to make the agri business very interesting. We will complete the rice mill. When it is completed, it will produce 2.6 million bags, 50 kilograms bags of rice. It will create opportunities in employment for about 350,000 people, both in direct and indirect labor, and so on. Then we are focusing also in that segment in training our people. So we expect to be able to train about 40,000 men and women in the process, because you need the people to be able to engage this. One other thing that is strong with us, and you know that, Tolu, is that technology. We view technology not just as an enabler, but the only way to leapfrog, to jump the challenges which we have. Is the reason why we are doing the Smart City project, the 3,000 kilometer broadband, to unleash the innovation of our youthful population, which is about 45 to 50% of the population, by the way, right, to begin to get work. And that will be supported by training. We are getting support from the private sector, not just to train, but also to absorb them. Right now, all of that is going on. We are going to do a campus, a technology campus, working with the private sector, which we've called KITE, in the Yaba area, just to see that entire place as a very strong ecosystem. Right, all that we are doing. So you will see the technology budget move up by 27% to 29.9 billion, right, just to support all of that process. But beyond that, you know, Lagos is beginning to be known as a big supporter of startups. So last week, our Lagos Innovation Council and Research Council are putting in a lot of money to support research and startups, right? That way you have people able to test what they are designing and what they are creating, and it unleashes enterprise within our people. Now, what you see is that increase you are seeing, a lot of it is in infrastructure. So infrastructure has gone up by 86%. Right, to about 620 billion. Right now, some of those infrastructure are basically completing all the things we are doing, right, in the big project to move it in a quite advanced manner. But we're also going to be going into the inner cities road. PwC will be doing a lot of work, right? So you will see new roads coming out from the Ikoyi area, in addition to what we did before, in the Victoria Island area, in the Lekki area, in Ikorodu, in Alimosho, right? You see us everywhere, right, to basically just complete what we have started, because if your project remain uncompleted, then you lock value in it, and sometimes you need more money to push it beyond where it is moving on a normal basis, and I think that's what we've done.
Interesting. We're talking about cash here. We're talking about cash flow one way or the other. Yes, not all of it is purely cash like you explained. But let's talk about IGR. Many are always thinking when they talk Lagos, they think IGR. What are we expecting with regards to that? Because I saw a figure of about 81 billion naira monthly. That looks like a tall order to me.
We are people of audacity, Tolu. And when you look at the potential of Lagos, you can never achieve that potential without being courageous, without aiming for the skies and aiming for the stars, right? And that is what we have done, right? We've had a lot of progress in this administration. Last year, for example, LRS performed at almost 80-something% of what we expected them to earn. We are working with some of the best rate consultants just to look at things. You know, we are doing quite well on the pay taxes, and we believe that we still have a lot of potential there in trying to just get more people in. But beyond that, we have studied and seen, when we compare ourselves to other cities around Africa and around the world, that there's a lot of potential for us in the land and real estate area. Right, and therefore we've commissioned projects that have started, like the EGIS project, basically that maps and digitizes the entire land administration system. We are deploying technology also in the construction permit and the physical planning systems, which we believe in the first quarter of this year we will have made significant progress. We are mapping, using drones to map every land in Lagos, right, so that we can have completeness, right? Because we know that the amount of properties in Lagos that have physical planning permits are not significant percentage. So there's a lot of meat off the table. What all of these initiatives would do, it will provide significantly improved services to people operating in that sector. When people are happy to interact with government, right, you see that the transaction footprint increases, and therefore the amount of revenues that you can get from it begins to increase, right? Apart from other things that that are tentative, we have focused a lot on the ability to use technology and economic intelligence, right, to get data and integration of databases so that we can see through what our people are doing and then encourage our people, right, to participate through their commitments in paying the right taxes and the right levies, and just in behaving correctly. I don't see any nation really that does develop well without their taxes or their revenues going up. And therefore we encourage Lagosians to participate with the government to help us ensure that we have increased revenues. When you look at nations in the West, you see that their revenues to GDP moves in the ranges of 30% and above, right? When you're looking at places like in South Africa or Joburg, you're looking at things in the high 20s and above, but we are still at on that 2% or on that 2.5%. So we have the potential to double and multiply our IGR. Our IGR remains strong. You know, when Fitch rated us, right, they upgraded us from AA to AAA. That is very significant, and they did that seeing that we remain strong and resilient in the way we administer the state, and comparing us with international and national peers in terms of resilience, in terms of our IGR robustness, and the fact that we're able to hold out even during the pandemic, and the way we managed the pandemic. We had to stand as a gateway for Nigeria so that Nigeria is better than worse, because we control almost 70-something% to 80% of the air traffic into the country. And therefore, we believe as a Nigerian asset that we are, we carry the burden of ensuring that we lead from the front and ensure we get a better outcome. And that is what Fitch rating has seen. And they also looked at our sustainability and said, look, we are strong. We are able by far to pay our loans. And even when you look at the sustainability right now, despite this increase in deficit funding, we still are 22. The World Bank expects us to be about 30. The Nigeria benchmark is about 40. So we have a lot of room. And to create that value for the people of Lagos, we must take our chances, we must be bold, we must be courageous, and we must be effective as we implement on this budget.
Yes, some would even say that government needs to take advantage of the informal sector. That there's a lot of focus so much on the formal sector. Well, I don't know if you comment on that, but I also am worried that many will say that, just like before we came in, it's politicking now, and we see a lot of activities springing up as we move on to 2023, and this is like the full budget for the first term of this administration. So what are we expecting? Some will say maybe by mid of the year there might not be a lot of governance, maybe no more of governance activities in our various states. Everyone might be moving to Abuja. Are we going to implement this document to the latter as we move on?
So, Tolu, just remember when you talk about Lagos State, remember the leaders of Lagos State. Mr. Governor has significant experience. He has seen many transition years. Mr. Deputy Governor as well. You have people in cabinet that have managed risks, that have managed portfolios, huge portfolios from the private sector. This politics is not happening to us by surprise. We knew from the beginning, Mr. Governor will always count his time in days. So he knew that at this particular point in time, politics will give in. And just like we managed the emergency of COVID, and we managed the emergencies of the NSAS, we will manage also the challenges that comes with the electioneering processes, which is why I tell you, one of the things, this whole thing about the increase in budget size, right, it was foresightedness of Mr. Governor, right, to organize some of these crucial and strategic projects in that way, so that the projects cannot be stopped by politics, because it's clockwork. They do the work, we give the certificate, the bank pays against our guarantees. And so the project can advance outside the bureaucracy sometimes that exists within government, right? And we are able to move full speed ahead with nothing being interrupted. Remember that Mr. Governor has significant experience also in the private sector, in the corporate finance space. Myself, the Commissioner of Finance as well, right? And a lot of us in cabinet are people that have led different risk portfolios before. So when you see us managing this, I think Lagosians can be proud and can be confident in that they have led their states in good hands, and we will deliver just as we have promised.
We've talked around food. I wanted us to talk around food as we wrap up, talking about the rice meal and all of that. And even today, the rice pyramid was actually launched in Abuja. So obviously, Lagos has a role to play in all of this. What more are we looking at with regards to agriculture?
So agriculture is, so first of all, you need to understand what Lagos is. Lagos is a consumption center. Lagos is not primarily a production center.
Yes, yes.
But because Lagos is that big market, we can influence the way the production centers around the country and around Africa behaves. We must prepare ourselves also for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, because we believe and intend that Lagos will be that hub and will lead the Nigerian onslaught into the African continent. What that means is that we must begin to develop our processing centers, and the rice mill is one of them, right? And that rice mill, like I said, will deliver 350,000 jobs, right? It will stimulate production of paddy around the country, right? Because it is near the market, and that's exactly what we're doing. We will complete it this year. Mr. Governor, you realize, just appointed an SA in cabinet to support the Commissioner of Agric, to just ensure we focus and we get it going and started, right? But beyond that, you need, Lagos is a city with a lot of swagger. And therefore, because of our youth population, we need to begin to make our youths begin to see the swagger that is in agripreneurship, so that they see that it's a business actually. It's not something that belongs to our parents, but because Naira and Kobo comes out of it. So we're going to be training a lot, and I said we'll train about 40,000 youths and women. And this training is not just to teach them how, but also to give them toolkits with which they can start with. You remember the last time at the police college where we gave out fishing boats, we gave out different kind of implements, and they are doing well, and we are excited about the outcome of that. But we're also pursuing things around feedlots, right, to just ensure, if we consume 50% of the total production of meat in Nigeria, then we must influence the quality. And we believe through our feedlot systems, we'll be able to ensure that everything coming into Lagos is of proper quality, tender beef, quality to the tongue test, pass the tongue test, and we're able to just deploy that way. This is Lagos, right? It has the headquarters of the financial institutions, the oil and gas industries, and it has one of the most cerebral melting pots in the country, and therefore we cannot do less for the people of Lagos.
So what's your message to Lagos, to Lagosians, particularly their support as we move on in achieving all of this, all of these aims and objectives, government?
Well, I just need to tell Lagosians that this is their government. They voted us in, and Mr. Governor is extremely sensitive about the people of Lagos. So when you see him go himself to Magodo, it's because these are his people. He's in the midst of his people. When you see him negotiate directly with nurses, right, it's because these are his people, right? And I like to just tell Lagosians that they should continue to participate in government. We should continue to hear their voices. We should continue to hear from them, show us things they are excited about and things they are not so excited about, because we will respond to those statements. That is part of being in government, and you cannot have development when you do not have citizens' participation in all its ramifications. But beyond that, we must show that equity we have in the state by ensuring that we pay the right taxes, we behave properly in the environment called Lagos, especially in the way we obey the laws in Lagos State. And we believe that Lagos is getting greater and greater every day.
It's a good way to live it. I've been speaking to the Honorable Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, Lagos State, Mr. Samuel Egube, giving us insights into this very big 1.7 trillion naira budget expenditure plan for Lagos State. That's the center of excellence, telling us all that we should expect. We'll be on the watch out, and we'll be bringing you up to speed, bringing you to tell Lagosians and even Nigerians so that we can actualize and see that all of this are happening. But Lagos is actually doing well, I must say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, too.